Growing up as a teen in the 1980s is much different than the way teenagers are growing up now. The differences from fashion to technology to pop culture and leisure activities are obvious in the different generations. Though the trends were different and always will be from generation to generation, being a teenager will in many ways remain the same. We all want to be our own individuals, but at the same time, we want to be included in groups, to feel accepted for who we are. We all need the love of our parents, but at the same time, we challenge them on virtually every point they make. We all want to be adults, yet we yearn for the simplicity of childhood. In other words, we are walking contradictions. In this sense, teenagers of the 80s were no different than us. What does set us apart, though, is technology.
Music has been influencing teenagers for decades, but the way they listen to music has been constantly changing.
Music throughout the 80s was rapidly changing, extremely diverse, original, and sometimes controversial. The launch of MTV, or music television, made a huge impact on music and the way it affected teens and society. MTV was a television channel that broadcast music videos for 24 hours a day. This led to teens' obsession with music videos, which in turn led to the industry investing in increasingly more extravagant videos, leading to the production of classics such as Michael Jackson's Thriller. Vinyls and record players were an extremely common way to listen to music. The introduction of the CD in 1982, along with the popularity of cassette tapes and Sony Walkman, brought portability and accessibility to music, increasing its part in everyday life. Boomboxes, oversized radios, were very popular with the youth of the early and mid-80s. If teens wanted to hear their favorite songs, they would have to own it physically or wait for it to come on the radio. Teens would often make mixtapes, cassettes of their favorite songs, by using a boombox to record the songs from the radio.
The music of the 80s was revolutionary. With this, there was bound to be some controversy along the way. An example being Madonna's Like a Virgin, released in 1984. It sent shockwaves through a decade in which the boundaries of social acceptability were pushed to the limits.
Teens today are just as, if not more, influenced by music as past teens were. As most teens carry smartphones with them at almost all times, music is available to them at the touch of a button. With the invention of music apps such as Pandora and Spotify, almost every song is available to them instantly. Through these apps, teenagers can make playlists of their favorite songs and virtually share them with friends. Teens choose to listen to their music through their headphones or speakers, which are commonly Bluetooth and wireless. Radios are rarely used by today's adolescents. Even in cars, most teens use an aux cord, or Bluetooth, to listen to music from their phones. Teens now listen to a wide variety of music genres. The technology we have now has increased the availability of music, making it easier to explore all different types. Music videos are still made, but they are not as popular among teens as they once were. Music videos are not shown on MTV the way they were in the past. Teens now can see music videos on social media or YouTube. Teens could be influenced to listen to certain artists because they see that it's popular with their friends through social media. Movies have been enjoyed by teens for decades.
There was not a lot of diversity when it came to 80s teen movies. John Hughes was a very famous director, known for his movies such as The Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and Pretty in Pink. Romantic comedies were very popular, but always featuring straight white couples. There was not a lot of diversity in movies in general.
Some recent popular teen movies include Black Panther and Love, Simon. These movies are a good representation of the diversity and acceptance of the current generation. Black Panther brought one of comic books' first black superheroes to the big screen, and Love, Simon is a romantic comedy about a gay couple. This shows the great strides that have been made towards the acceptance and inclusion of everybody. Movies like these help to influence the way people feel about others. Through studies, it has been found that today's generation is more respectful and inclusive of diversity than any other generation. The way television is watched has evolved throughout the years.
In 1980, 20% of households still had black and white television. Watching TV was not a common activity for an average 80s teen. In the 80s, sitcoms were very popular. Although there are still some similarities, television has changed from the 80s to now. Teenagers now will often sit and watch TV for hours in their free time. There are now many different types of television shows available for teenagers to watch for all kinds of interests. The amount of television channels teens have access to now is far more than what was available then. Also, teens now have on-demand, which allows them to watch any show anytime they want. Netflix and other streaming services are also available to teens. A video streaming service is an on-demand online entertainment source for TV shows, movies, and other streaming media.
An ABC News Brief brought to you by Budweiser Beer.
The way news is acquired is something that has constantly changed since the 80s.
The spread of news and information was far less than it is now. The most popular way of obtaining news in the 80s was from newspapers. Newspapers could be picked up at the store or were delivered to people's houses daily. Newspapers exist today but are far less popular. Another way to hear about what is going on around the country would be the local and nightly news that was shown at only certain times of the day. News could also be heard on the radio, but again, only at certain times.
News today is something that is much more attainable. 24-hour news coverage is now available to teenagers. With smartphones always in their pockets, the news can be checked through several different news sources at any time of the day. Computers are also used to check the news that is updated nonstop. Today there are news channels that have news coverage at all times of the day, local and worldwide. Popular news events often times make their way to social media. With these advances in technology, the news has become more accessible to teens, causing them to be a little more in touch with the current events. Even celebrity news is very popular for teens to watch, so they are always updated with their lives and latest styles. Fashion trends in the 80s would be considered very visually unique compared to the trends now. The 80s were all about boundary-pushing styles, big hair, bright colors, and loud makeup. Geometric patterns and bright colors were seen on many t-shirts and sweatshirts.
MTV's start in 1981 brought a huge change to fashion among teens. MTV made it easier for fashion trends and fads to spread across the country. Popular trends now reached further and spread faster, inspiring more people than ever before. The music videos showed on the TV channel allowed teens to copy looks of their favorite celebrities. Music television had a huge influence not just on how teens dressed, but how they did their makeup. With the start of MTV, visual expression became a lot more important to teenagers. This could be looked at as the beginning of teens feeling pressure to follow the trends and fit in. Looks for today's teens are very much influenced by those of their favorite celebrities. The fashion choices of celebrities are way more accessible to teens now. With celebrities' almost daily social media posts, teens can stay up to date with what celebrities are into. A lot of trends are strongly influenced by Instagram models. An Instagram model is someone who has many followers on Instagram and who many teens look up to and follow the things they do, such as the way they dress. Being compared to a Brandy Melville model or YouTuber who attended Coachella is cool. Teens can easily find online articles and videos that can keep them up to date on the latest fashion trends. Teens today also occasionally take inspiration from fashion show catwalks, now that they can be easily found on the internet. Popular TV shows and movies also influence the way teens dress. Since the newest fashion trends are so rapidly changing, easy to be seen and heard about, teens feel more pressured to model a certain image and wear the newest looks. The many ways fashion is displayed through technology influences teen fashion today because teens can see what others are wearing or doing in their free time to inspire them to do the same.
One of the most evident contrasts between the two generations is how teens enjoyed spending their free time.
Alongside driving, teens in the 80s would often use their bikes or walk from place to place, in contrast to today's teens who find themselves driving everywhere they need to go. Popular hangout spots remain almost the same throughout the years. Both generations enjoy hanging out with friends at the mall or at a friend's house. Both generations enjoy going to the movies, although unlike today's teenagers who can just look up the movie times on their phones, past teens had to look in a newspaper for the movie times. Another common interest among the teens is concerts. They have been popular events to attend with friends for decades.
Teens in the past were more likely to actually go out and physically spend time with their friends. They would make plans in person, go over to a friend's house, knock on the door, and see if they wanted to hang out, or they would call each other using landline phones. Teens of the 80s spent a good amount of time outdoors building forts, tents, making secret clubs, and playing sports. They also enjoyed hanging out in places like roller skating rinks, bowling alleys, or arcades. Pac-Man and Donkey Kong were extremely popular arcade games, and Nintendo and Atari were very popular gaming consoles at the time. Teenagers' love for video games is something that has stayed constant over the years. Teenagers today enjoy playing video games such as Call of Duty, NBA 2K, Fortnite, and Grand Theft Auto on consoles like Xbox and PlayStation.
Today's teens text their friends to make plans that can be changed instantly at any moment. Teens are more likely to stay in, and because of technology and social media, they have less of a need to interact face-to-face. FaceTime and Skype are options available today, which allow teenagers to see and talk to their friends without being with them. A lot of teens today spend most of their free time on their cell phones, computers, playing video games, scrolling through an endless social media feed, or binge-watching Netflix. Cell phones have become such a huge part of most teenagers' lives that it is not uncommon for them to sit in a room with friends on their individual phones and not communicate with each other. Technology has affected the way teens contact and interact with their friends. Their socializing skills have suffered the most because of this. The loss of social skills in teenagers today reflects in their education and struggles to ask for help.
The evolution of the way teens learn and how they are taught is obvious in today's high schools. Lots of changes have been made in classrooms to successfully teach today's adolescents. Many high school teachers who have been teaching for years have been able to see the obvious differences in students throughout the years.
The most obvious change in teens today is their cell phones. Cell phones have become a huge part of teenagers' lives, especially during the school day. Since most teenagers have their cell phones with them at all times, phones have become a huge distraction while in school, taking teens away from their studies. Even though cell phones can occasionally be used for educational purposes, cell phones are typically frowned upon in the classroom setting. In class, it is not uncommon for a teacher to have to take a cell phone away from a student while they are using it in class. Not only are phones distracting students from their schoolwork, but they are also hindering the way teens obtain and retain information. With constant access to their phones, all information is just a Google search away. Any question a teen has can be answered in the matter of just a few seconds. Today's teens are extremely driven by instant gratification. Due to the immediate response from technology, teens are used to getting what they want or need right away. They oftentimes will go for the easy, simple way out of schoolwork and tasks to accomplish them sooner and feel gratification sooner. If something can't be done instantly, stress and anxiety can begin to set in. If an 80s teen needed information or had a question, the answer would have to be found using a book, such as an encyclopedia, or answered by a knowledgeable person. While 80s teens were writing papers or doing homework, this is how all information would be found.
80s teens wrote reports for school by using typewriters in the early years, or even with just a pen and paper. Towards the end of the decade, computers were starting to be used. Today's teens use laptops, desktops, tablets, and smartphones to do schoolwork. Spell check is something today's teens have access to check their spelling in essays, while past teens would have to look up words up in a dictionary to spell them correctly. Blackboards were what was found in an 80s classroom. Smartboards are what are found in most of today's classrooms. The internet and recent technology has changed the way that we learn in endless ways. Teens now rely on the internet for practically everything because the internet is so accessible. They have no reason to retain any of the information because the Google results are always seconds away.
I feel good sometimes I don't. I finesse down Western Road.
Technology has changed society as a whole, but it has mainly affected teenagers and the way they are growing up. Smartphones have made a huge impact on the lives of teenagers today. 60 teens from across the United States in different demographics were surveyed. According to the survey, the average teen gets their first smartphone at 11. Most teens spend about 6 hours a day on their phone and overall 11 hours in front of screens. Phones bring so many opportunities to this generation of teens. Before the invention of modern-day cell phones, to take a picture, you would have to carry a bulky camera with you, get the picture developed, and physically share it with your friends. Today, teens have the cameras on the pocket-sized cell phones they carry with them at all times. Pictures can be taken and instantly shared on social media for everyone to see. If 80s teens were out and about with their friends and needed to make a call, they would need to use a payphone, while today's teens have phones with them constantly and can make phone calls whenever. 80s teens had to use a physical medium such as a phone book to keep their contacts in, while today's teens keep all of their contacts in their phones. iPhone 5S, iPhone 6, and the Samsung Galaxy S5 were the most popular phones among teens. Having a phone at all times means you have a calculator with you at all times. 80s teens did the math in their heads. Texting is a huge part of today's teens' daily routines and everyday lives, while it was something that didn't even exist in the 80s. Anyone you need to get in touch with is just one text away. Texting is the fastest and most popular way teens get in touch with their friends.
Unlike the 80s, today's parents are just a text away from their children and are almost always in contact with them. If their son or daughter does not answer a text, parents start to worry. Teens in the 80s would rarely be in contact with their parents throughout the day, and their parents never worried if they did not hear from them. Smartphones do not mean teens have totally cut out face-to-face contact. Teens still participate in activities without their phones. While smartphones and social media can be the leading cause and more drama in teens' lives, they can also create new online friendships and opportunities.
Social media is one of the biggest parts of teen life that has opened the door to a new world of atypical trends. Social media is present in many different forms. Social media is how trends spread and things become popular. The most popular app was found to be Snapchat, and Spotify was found to be the most popular music app. Instagram and Twitter were also high on the list, but Facebook was absent from the list. Fake Instagram accounts, Finstas, were popular. Teens aren't using Facebook, but they are still using Facebook Messenger to talk to their friends. Something that is popular among teens across all platforms of social media are memes. Memes are humorous images, videos, pieces of text that are copied, often with slight variations, and spread rapidly by internet users. Vines were a popular internet trend for a few years. Vines are short, 6-second videos with the goal of entertaining or making the viewer laugh. Hashtags are popular on most social media platforms. They are a word or phrase preceded by a hash or pound sign and used to identify messages on a specific topic. Through these, the same jokes, slang, and trends are shared by teens throughout the world.
Although cable television became available in the 1970s, it became standard for most American households in the 80s. Cable television brought a whole host of new programming. ESPN could be watched 24 hours a day, Nickelodeon and CNN became popular, and MTV brought a revolution to the music industry. Video cassette recorders allowed Americans to record television shows and watch them on tapes according to their own schedule, and view feature films in the privacy of their own homes. Personal computers were also becoming popular in homes, leading teens toward daily usage of technology and the internet.
One of the larger and more concerning differences between the two generations is the significantly increasing rate of depression among today's teenagers. A study of national trends in depression among adolescents and young adults published in the journal Pediatrics on November 14th found that the prevalence of teens who reported a major depressive episode in the previous 12 months jumped from 8.7% in 2005 to 11.5% in 2014, which is a 37% increase. Psychologist Jean Twenge calls the generation born between 1995 and 2012 iGens. After conducting many surveys, Jean has found that iGens have poorer emotional health than the generations before them. She blames this poor state of emotional health on new media. She has found that new media is making teens more lonely, anxious, and depressed, and is undermining their social skills and their sleep. Teens are found to spend from 5 to 6 hours a day on their phones. Jean came to these conclusions after studying that the rise in teens' poor mental state mirrors the market of iPhones. Teens are spending less time with their friends in person. A survey found that in the United States, about 45% of children ages 10 to 12 owned their own smartphones. Another survey found that 42% of children 8 years old and younger own their own tablet.
Although not as common, 80s teens weren't strangers to the topic of poor mental health. In 1988, the movie Heathers brought these events to the big screen. Although the North American depression rate in the 80s was shocking, it had not increased significantly since the 60s and 70s.
Through Jean's research, she has also found that the iGens are growing up more slowly than any generation in the past. How fast teens grow up depends on their perception of the environment. When the environment is perceived as hostile and competitive, teens take a fast life strategy, growing up quickly, starting families earlier, and focusing on survival and success, while a slow life strategy occurs in safer environments. A slow life strategy is more common in times and places where families have fewer children and spend more time cultivating each child's growth and development. Families now average 2 children, while in the past the average was 4.
In another set of 7 surveys spanning from 1976 to 2016, psychologists Jean Twang and Hee-Jong Park analyzed 8.3 million responses. Through their research, it was found that today's 18-year-olds act more like 15-year-olds in the past generations. In the early 80s, almost 90% of teens had their driver's license by 12th grade, but by 2014, this had fallen to about 73%. The results from the early 80s concluded that 80% of 12th graders had held at least one job, while in 2014, only 55% said they had worked for pay. Results have also found that the rates of teens dating and underage drinking have gone down. Some researchers believe that this decrease is due to today's teens being more virtuous and responsible than their counterparts 30 years ago, while others argue they are just more lazy. A problem that has arisen today that would have never happened 30 or 40 years ago is cyberbullying. Teens in the 80s may have been bullied back then, but cyberbullying was not an idea. Today, people hide behind screens, making it easier to say mean and hurtful things to others on the internet. Cyberbullying can cause teens to feel bad about themselves, giving them low self-esteem, which can lead to depression.
With the rapid down-aging of smartphone ownership, more issues are being uncovered. Earlier this year, psychologists found robust cross-cultural evidence linking social media use to body image concerns, dieting, body surveillance, a drive for thinness, and self-objectification in adolescents. Visual platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat deliver the tools that allow teens to earn approval for their appearance and compare themselves to others. This can lead teens to feel more pressure and more stress than previous generations.